Bling! A notification just popped up on your screen, and you're tuned into COCO Gossip, the only channel that peels back the layers of reality TV to reveal the shocking truth. Today, we're dusting off the archives and cracking open a file that's been gathering dust for nearly 2 decades. We're talking about Kody and Meri Brown's 2005 bankruptcy. This isn't just old news, darlings. This is the origin story of the financial web that has entangled the Brown family for years. What if I told you that the financial chaos we see playing out on our screens today isn't a new phenomenon, but a carefully crafted strategy that dates back to their earliest days? Get ready, because we're about to expose a pattern of hidden assets, undervalued possessions, and a calculated deception that will make you question everything you thought you knew about Kody Brown. Don't go anywhere, because you won't want to miss a single second of this explosive investigation. And if you're as hungry for the truth as I am, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to COCO Gossip, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the stories that reality TV doesn't want you to see. Your support keeps our little community of truth seekers alive and kicking. Now, let's get into it. Hello, my beautiful gossip mongers, and welcome back. For years, we've watched the Brown family's financial drama unfold. We've seen the arguments over the Coyote Pass property, the questionable business ventures, the tension over who gets what, and the constant gnawing anxiety about money that seems to follow this family like a shadow. We've seen Christine and Janelle fight for their financial independence, and we've seen Meri left in a state of financial limbo. And through it all, one narrative has been pushed, primarily by Kody and Robyn, that the financial strain is a recent development, a consequence of the family falling apart, of a lack of unity, of Christine's supposedly selfish decision to leave. But, darlings, that is a lie. Today, we are traveling back in time. Before the TLC cameras, before the fame, before the move to Las Vegas, and long before the cul-de-sac of broken dreams in Flagstaff. We're going back to June 2005. The family was living in Wyoming, and on the surface, they were just another young, struggling family. But behind closed doors, a financial storm was brewing, and it led Kody and his first wife, Meri, to file for Chapter 7, Bankruptcy. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Chapter 7. Bankruptcy is often called a liquidation bankruptcy. It's designed to give a person a fresh start by wiping out most of their unsecured debts, like credit card bills and medical expenses. In exchange, a court-appointed trustee can seize and sell off any of your non-exempt assets to repay your creditors. The key words there are non-exempt assets. These are the things the court can legally take. And this, my friends, is where our story begins, because the way you get to keep as much as possible is by convincing the court that you have very, very little of value. We have obtained copies of Kody and Meri's 2005 bankruptcy filing, a public court record, and when you look closely, the numbers just don't add up. On paper, they painted a picture of utter destitution. According to the documents, Kody, then a salesman, was earning a monthly income of around $4,000, and Meri was bringing in about $625 a month as an engraver. Their total declared debt? A staggering $229,873. Now, that's a lot of money, but here's where the fairy tale they told the court begins to unravel. They claim to have only $10 in cash, not $10,000, not $1,010 dollars. They claimed a grand total of $5 across all of their joint bank accounts. $5. Let that sink in. A family with, at that point, 12 children across 3 households with a combined income of over $4,600 a month wants a federal court to believe they have less cash on hand than you'd need to buy a value meal at a fast food restaurant. But it gets even more audacious. Let's look at their schedule of assets. This is the list of everything they own and what they claim it's worth. Household goods and furnishings, a mere $200. Books, pictures, and art, valued at $0. Clothing, $100. Jewelry, another big fat zero. They claim to own 3 vehicles, but the total value listed for them was suspiciously low. We're talking about figures like family car, $500. This document is a masterclass in what is legally known as financial obfuscation. That's a fancy term for hiding the truth about your money, and it's not just unethical, it's illegal. Hiding assets during bankruptcy is a form of fraud. It's a federal crime that can land you in prison. just like it did for Joe and Teresa Giudice from The Real Housewives of New Jersey. To help us understand the significance of these numbers, we consulted with a forensic accountant. For the purposes of our investigation, we'll call her Dr. Anya Sharma. Dr. Sharma has spent over 20 years analyzing financial documents in cases of suspected fraud, and when we showed her the Browns' 2005 filing, she wasn't just suspicious. She was floored. Dr. Sharma. The first thing that jumps out at you are the round lowball numbers. When you see values like 200 for an entire household of furniture, or 200 for an entire household of furniture, or 200 for an entire household of furniture, or zircon for jewelry, those are immediate red flags. It's not just unlikely, it's practically impossible. A family of that size, even a struggling one, accumulates stuff. Furniture, electronics, appliances, clothing. To claim it's all worth less than a single trip to the grocery store is an insult to the court's intelligence. So, you're saying these values are not just low, they're deliberately misleading? Dr. Sharma. Absolutely. This is a classic tactic called undervaluing assets. You're legally required to list the fair market value of your possessions. That's what a reasonable person would pay for it. A $500 car in 2005? Was it a non-running rust bucket with no doors? Possibly, but is it likely that the primary vehicle for a family was in that condition? Highly doubtful. Trustees see this every day. They know people will try to claim their 10-year-old Honda is worth scrap value when it's still running perfectly fine. The goal is to make your assets seem so worthless that the trustee doesn't bother seizing and selling them. You mentioned red flags. What else did you see? Dr. Sharma. The complete lack of certain categories is telling. $0 for jewelry. Really? Not even a wedding band? No sentimental pieces? It's possible, but highly improbable. Again, it's a common item people try to hide because it's small, valuable, and hard to trace. They might give it to a friend or family member to hold on to until after the bankruptcy is discharged. They also list books, pictures, and art at zero. Every home has photos, decorative items. It suggests a lack of thoroughness at best and a deliberate attempt to conceal at worst. Dr. Sharma went on to explain that the cumulative effect of this undervaluing can be substantial. A few $100s here, $1,000 there. It all adds up. Based on her retrospective analysis of the filing and what we can infer about their lifestyle at the time, she estimated that Kody and Meri potentially concealed assets worth over $50,000 in 2005. $50,000. That's not just a rounding error, darlings. That is a calculated strategic deception. That's money that should have been available to their creditors, the people they owed nearly $250,000 to. This wasn't a family on its last $5. This was a family playing a shell game with the legal system. The missing creditors, a tale of family betrayal. But the deception didn't stop with undervaluing what they had. It also extended to who they owed. The bankruptcy petition includes a comprehensive list of creditors. This is everyone you owe money to, from big banks and credit card companies down to the local doctor's office. Kody and Meri listed pages of them: Home Depot, Sears, Best Buy, various banks and collection agencies. But according to our insider reports from sources who were close to the family in those early Wyoming and Utah years, there were some very important names missing from that list. Family members. It's been an open secret, discussed on the show in vague terms for years, that the Browns have a history of borrowing money from relatives. These were personal loans, handshakes, and promises made within the family circle. Legally, these are debts just like any other and must be disclosed in a bankruptcy filing. Failing to do so isn't just a simple mistake, it's another form of bankruptcy fraud. Why would they do this? Well, there are two very cynical and very Kody-like reasons. First, if you list a family member as a creditor, they might get a notice from the court. They might start asking questions. They might even show up to the creditor's meeting. It brings unwanted scrutiny from people who know your life intimately and can call out your lies. What if an uncle who loaned you $5,000 for a down payment sees you've listed your car as being worth only $500? He knows that's not true. He might just mention that to the trustee. It's easier to just leave them off the list. Second, and this is the truly heartbreaking part, is how these debts are treated. In a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, most debts are discharged, wiped clean. But there's a moral component here. By not listing the family loans, Kody and Meri could have intended to repay them later, after the bankruptcy wiped out all their other official debt. This is called preferential treatment, and it's also illegal. You're not allowed to pick and choose which creditors get paid. But let's be real. There's another, more sinister possibility. By not listing the family members, they could simply pretend the debt never existed. Once the bankruptcy was done, who were these family members going to complain to? The court that was never told about them in the first place? It was the perfect way to erase a debt while avoiding the shame of officially bankrupting on your own kin. It's a betrayal of trust on the deepest level. This wasn't just about outsmarting the banks. This was about potentially deceiving and defaulting on the very people who supported them when they were struggling. It establishes a pattern, not just of financial dishonesty, but of using and discarding people, even family, for their own financial gain. Let's pause and consider the lifestyle paradox here. The bankruptcy documents, as we've seen, paint a picture of a family in absolute poverty. $10 in cash, $5 in the bank, furniture worth less than a night at the movies. But does this align with the reality of the Brown family in 2005? At this point, Kody was spiritually married to not just Meri, but Janelle and Christine as well. He was the head of 3 households. He had 12 children. While the bankruptcy only legally involved Kody and Meri, Kody's income was supposed to be supporting this entire plural family. The $40,600 a month they declared is a tight squeeze for a family of that size, but it's not $5 in the bank level of poverty. This raises a crucial question that the bankruptcy filing conveniently ignores. Were there other income streams? Was money being earned that wasn't being declared? This is a fundamental question that hangs over this entire filing. In the world of fundamentalist polygamy, financial arrangements can be complex and insular. Bartering, under-the-table work, and community support systems are common, but to the U.S. bankruptcy court, income is income, and you have to declare all of it. The failure to do so, combined with the ridiculously low asset valuations, suggests that the bankruptcy filing wasn't just a fresh start. It was a calculated financial maneuver, a way to shed nearly $250,000 in debt while protecting their actual lifestyle and assets from the prying eyes of the law. And this, darlings, is the blueprint. This is the Rosetta Stone for understanding every financial decision Kody Brown has made since. This 2005 filing wasn't an anomaly, it was practice. It was Kody's education in financial manipulation. He learned how to use legal structures like bankruptcy to his advantage. He learned how to present one picture to the outside world while living a very different reality. Now, let's fast forward to the present day. Does any of this sound familiar? A pattern of questionable financial statements, a lack of transparency, a shell game where money moves around in ways that only seem to benefit Kody and his favored wife? Think about the endless saga of Coyote Pass. The land was purchased, but for years it sat undeveloped while the family hemorrhaged money on rentals and mortgages. Why? Kody's excuse was always a lack of unity, a lack of funds. But the women, particularly Janelle and Christine, consistently pushed to build, to create assets, to have something tangible for their years of contribution. Their pleas were always met with deflection and financial stonewalling from Kody. He controlled the purse strings, and the purse strings were always tied in knots. And what about the infamous LLCs? In recent years, we've seen the Browns create a tangled web of limited liability companies like Kody Brown Family Entertainment LLC. On the surface, this is a smart business move. But for a family that claims to be a single financial unit, it's also a perfect tool for financial obfuscation. That word again. An LLC can be used to segregate assets, to control who has access to money, and to create a legal barrier between personal and business finances. Insider reports have strongly suggested that these LLCs became a way for Kody and Robyn to consolidate financial control. Money would flow into a central business account, but how it was distributed was entirely at Kody's discretion. It's the 2005 bankruptcy on a larger scale. Instead of hiding assets from the court, He was now hiding them from his own family, sequestering the family's collective earnings into entities that only he and Robyn had full access to and control over. Remember Christine's struggle to get the money from the sale of her house in Flagstaff? She had to buy out Kody from a home that she had paid for and lived in. Why Sisani? Because his name was on the deed and he used that legal leverage to extract his share. This is the same man who told the government he had nothing, now nickel and diming the mother of 6 of his children as she tried to escape a broken spiritual marriage. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. This isn't just a new development. It's not, as Kody and Robyn would have you believe, a sad consequence of the family breaking apart. The evidence is clear. The family breaking apart is a consequence of this long-standing pattern of financial deceit and control. The 2005 bankruptcy filing proves it. It shows that Kody's fundamental financial character was formed long before Robyn ever entered the picture. It reveals a man who views legal and financial systems not as a set of rules to be followed, but as a game to be won. A man who is willing to mislead, misrepresent, and, if necessary, betray those closest to him to secure his own financial advantage. The bankruptcy was the dress rehearsal. Coyote Pass and the LLCs were the main performance. And for Christine and Janelle, this realization must have been both terrifying and validating. For years, they were told they were part of a single, unified family. They pooled their resources, they worked, they raised children, all under the belief that they were building a collective future. But as the years went on and the financial transparency disappeared, they must have felt a dawning horror. The system was rigged. The patriarch they trusted was the same man who once told a federal court he only had $10 to his name. Their decision to leave wasn't just about a lack of love or a dysfunctional marriage. It was a business decision. It was an act of financial self-preservation. They were rats, fleeing a sinking ship, a ship that the captain himself had been secretly drilling holes in for decades. And this forgotten filing, this dusty old court document from 2005, is the proof. It is the smoking gun that validates every suspicion, every doubt, and every tear they shed over their lost financial security. It proves that their struggle wasn't with a man who was bad with money. Their struggle was with a man who was and is fundamentally dishonest. And that is a battle they were never going to win. We pulled back the curtain on a crucial yet largely ignored piece of the Brown family puzzle. Kody and Meri's 2005 Chapter 7, Bankruptcy. We revealed a document that wasn't just a record of financial hardship, but a blueprint for deception. A filing littered with red flags. A declared cash on hand of only $10, suspiciously undervalued assets like a $500 family car, and a glaring omission of personal loans from family members, a potential act of fraud, and a heartbreaking betrayal. We established, with the help of a forensic accountant, that this wasn't just a mistake or a sign of desperation. It was a calculated strategy of financial obfuscation, a way to shed $250,000 in debt while likely hiding tens of thousands of dollars in assets. We drew a direct line from that 2005 filing to the financial chaos of today. The Coyote Pass stalemate, the tangled web of LLCs, and the heartbreaking financial battles Christine and Janelle had to wage just to get what was rightfully theirs. That bankruptcy, darlings, was the original sin. It was the moment Kody Brown learned he could manipulate the system, that he could present a false narrative to the world and get away with it. It laid the foundation for decades of financial control and deceit. But that was just the beginning of the story. Today, we're going deeper. We will connect the dots between that initial act of deception and the arrival of the woman who would become Kody's ultimate financial partner in crime. We're going to explore the exclusive theories and insider reports that suggest the financial abuse was even more calculated and sinister than we ever imagined. And we're going to expose how this long-standing pattern of deceit became a weapon used to control, punish, and ultimately drive away the women who built this family. So grab your tea, because we're about to spill it. For years, a significant portion of the Sister Wives audience has pointed the finger at Robyn Brown as the catalyst for the family's implosion. She was the newcomer, the disruptor, the one who soaked up all of Kody's time, attention, and most importantly, the family's resources. The popular narrative is that Robyn came in and changed Kody, turning him from a goofy, if flawed patriarch into the bitter, manipulative man we see today. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if Robyn didn't change Kody, but instead she unleashed him? Our investigation into the 2005 bankruptcy proves that Kody's financial dishonesty predates Robyn's arrival by 5 years. The blueprint for financial manipulation was already in place. Kody had already learned how to play the game. What he needed was a new player on his team, someone who wasn't an established partner with her own ideas about finances like Meri, Janelle, and Christine were. He needed someone who would be an ally, a confidant, a co-conspirator. Enter Robyn Sullivan, a single mother with 3 young children and, according to her own admissions, a mountain of debt. In the courtship, Kody famously took Robyn shopping to buy a dress for a family event, a moment that was framed as romantic but was, in hindsight, a huge red flag. Meri, Janelle, and Christine were at home pooling their modest incomes to keep a massive family afloat, while Kody was spending their collective money on a potential new wife. But it goes deeper than that. Insider reports from that era paint a picture of Robyn's financial situation as being quite precarious. The most talked about piece of this is the rumored Victoria's Secret credit card debt, which has become something of a legend in the fandom. Whether it was Victoria's Secret or another store card is beside the point. The established fact is that Robyn came into the family with significant debt from her previous life. Kody, by paying off that debt with family funds, did something incredibly strategic. On the surface, it was an act of a benevolent patriarch providing for his new wife. But in reality, it was a transaction. It was the ultimate love bomb. He wasn't just marrying her, he was financially rescuing her. This created an immediate power imbalance and a deep sense of indebtedness and loyalty in Robyn. She wasn't just his wife, she was his project, his success story. Her financial well-being was now inextricably linked to his favor. Unlike the other wives who had been with Kody from the beginning and had a sense of ownership over the family's finances, Robyn started from a position of dependence. And Kody, who had already demonstrated a desire for control in his 2005 bankruptcy, now had a partner who was not only willing to accept his financial leadership but was grateful for it. She wasn't going to question where the money was going because she was a direct beneficiary of his financial maneuvering in a way the other wives were not. She wasn't the mastermind of the scheme. The scheme already existed. She was the perfect apprentice who quickly became his most trusted partner. She learned from the master of financial obfuscation, and together they would perfect the art. Exclusive theory number 1, the DABSARK conspiracy. To understand how Kody and Robyn consolidated their financial power, we need to talk about one of the most telling pieces of evidence in recent years, the family LLC, DABSARK. Now, on the surface, creating an LLC is just smart business. It protects your personal assets from business liabilities. But in a plural family that supposedly operates as a single financial unit, the structure and naming of that LLC can tell you everything. The name, DABSARK, is an acronym. D for Dayton, A for Aurora, B for Brianna, S for Solomon, A for Ariella, R for Robyn, and K for Kody. Do you see what's missing? The names of the other 13 children, the names of the other 3 wives. This wasn't a Brown family LLC. This was a Kody and Robyn and their children LLC. This was a legal declaration of a new, smaller, more important family unit. It was the financial equivalent of building a wall around their 5-bedroom mansion and leaving the rest of the family on the outside peering in. But our insider reports suggest it was far more than just a symbolic gesture. The theory, which we are calling the DABSARK conspiracy, posits that this LLC was deliberately created as the primary vehicle to divert and control the family's main source of income, their TLC paycheck. Here's how it would have worked. The money from the show, which was earned through the participation of all the wives and children, would be paid directly into the DABSARK business account. From that central pot, Kody and Robyn, as the sole managing members, would have complete discretion over how the money was spent. They could pay themselves salaries. They could cover their own lavish mortgage, pay for their children's activities, fund their lifestyle, all under the guise of business expenses. What was left for the other wives, whatever Kody decided to dole out? It effectively turned Meri, Janelle, and Christine from partners into employees. They no longer had direct access to the money they were earning. They had to go, cap in hand, to Kody and ask for their allowance. An allowance that was often denied, as we saw countless times on the show. Remember Janelle's desperate struggle to get funding to start construction on her Coyote Pass lot? Remember Christine lamenting that she couldn't afford to take her kids on trips? They were being told the family was broke, that there was no money. But was that the truth? Or was the money simply locked away in the DABSARK vault, accessible only to Kody and Robyn? This is a direct echo of the 2005 bankruptcy. In 2005, Kody presented a picture of poverty to the court to protect his assets from creditors. In the DABSARK era, he presented a picture of poverty to his own wives to protect the family's income from them. It is the exact same strategy, just deployed against a different target. The enemy was no longer the banks, it was his own family. The DABSARK LLC was the legal weapon that allowed Kody and Robyn to financially sever the other wives long before they spiritually or physically left the family. It was a slow, methodical financial strangulation, and it was all perfectly legal. Exclusive theory number 2. The Coyote Pass land game. Coyote Pass, the property that was supposed to be the Brown family's promised land. Their forever home, where they would all build together and grow old, watching their grandchildren play. It was a beautiful dream. But what if it was never a dream? What if, for Kody and Robyn, it was a cold, calculated real estate investment scheme? This brings us to our second exclusive theory, the Coyote Pass land game. This theory suggests that Kody and Robyn never had any serious intention of all 4 wives building on that property. Instead, their goal was to use the collective family funds, primarily the money brought in by the OG 3 wives, to acquire a massive, valuable asset, and then systematically squeeze the other women out, leaving them with the entire property for a fraction of its cost. Let's look at the evidence. The family purchased the Coyote Pass land in 2018 for $820,000. It was a huge financial undertaking that required everyone's buy-in. Janelle, in particular, was a major financial contributor, having sold her home in Las Vegas and invested the profits into the family pot. Christine also contributed significantly. They all paid into this dream. But from the moment the ink was dry on the deeds, the project stalled. For years, we watched Kody create roadblock after roadblock. The lots weren't right. The water wasn't there. There was no money. He would pit the wives against each other, arguing over who got which plot of land, creating a constant state of conflict and paralysis. He claimed he wanted unity before they could build, a condition he knew was impossible to meet. According to our insider sources, this was all a deliberate strategy of delay and decay. Kody and Robyn knew that Christine was deeply unhappy. They knew Janelle was growing increasingly frustrated. They knew Meri was effectively out of the family in all but name. The theory is that they deliberately made the situation in Flagstaff so miserable, so untenable, that the other wives would have no choice but to leave. And here's the genius, evil part of the plan. When each wife left, she had to be bought out of her share of the property. But how do you value that share? It's not based on the future potential of the land. It's based on the initial investment and murky family math. We saw this play out with Christine. She had to fight tooth and nail to get Kody to sign over the deed to her Flagstaff house. And in exchange, she effectively relinquished her claim on Coyote Pass. She walked away with her house, but Kody and the remaining family kept her share of the land. Think of it like this. 4 people buy a lottery ticket. 1 person holds the ticket. That person makes the other 3 so miserable that they give up their share for a few bucks just to get away. Then the ticket holder wins the jackpot. Kody and Robyn were the ticket holders. They used the OG wives' money to secure the land and pay down the loan. Then, through emotional and financial pressure, they forced them out one by one. Janelle, the last of the OG 3 to hold on, finally had to walk away, selling her RV and leaving her dream of building on the pass behind. What's the end result? Kody and Robyn are now in control of a sprawling, multi-acre property in a desirable Arizona location, a property that is likely worth far more now than what they paid for it. A property that was paid for with the money and dreams of the women they drove away. It's the ultimate long con, and it has its roots in the same mindset that allowed Kody to tell a court he only had $5 in his bank account. It's about acquiring assets while pretending you have nothing. It's about using other people's money to build your own kingdom. The Coyote Pass dream wasn't a dream for everyone. For Kody and Robyn, it was a hostile takeover. Insider report, the secret storage stash. Darlings, if you thought the last two theories were shocking, you need to buckle up, because this next insider report takes us back to the very beginning, to 2005 bankruptcy, and it suggests a level of premeditated deception that is truly mind-boggling. Remember how Kody and Meri's bankruptcy filing listed their personal property at laughably low values? Household goods for $200, clothing for $100, and, most tellingly, jewelry valued at $0. As our forensic accountant pointed out, this is practically impossible. Everyone has something of sentimental, if not monetary, value. So, where did it all go? According to an insider source, who was familiar with the family's dynamics during their Wyoming and early Utah years, Kody and Meri maintained a secret that was kept from the courts, and possibly even from the other wives. This secret was allegedly held in a nondescript, off-the-books storage unit. This wasn't just a place for old Christmas decorations. The report claims this storage unit was where the family's real assets were hidden away during the bankruptcy proceedings. We're talking about the things they didn't want the trustee to see. Family heirlooms, actual valuable jewelry, not just wedding bands, but pieces passed down through generations, potentially even cash hidden away from the prying eyes of the banking system. Small pieces of art or collectibles that could easily be liquidated later. This storage unit, paid for in cash and rented under a name that couldn't be easily traced back to them, would have been the perfect place to stash their valuables until the bankruptcy was discharged. Once the court wiped their debts clean, they could simply go back to the unit, unlock the door, and retrieve the assets they legally swore they never had. It is the physical embodiment of their financial fraud. While they were crying poverty to a federal judge, their real wealth was sitting in a locked metal box just a few miles away. This insider report adds a whole new dimension to the story. It means the undervaluing of assets on the petition wasn't just a lowball estimate, it was a complete fabrication supported by the physical act of hiding their possessions. And here's the chilling part. The source suggests that this habit of using storage units to hide things continued for years. As the family moved from Utah to Las Vegas and from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, the contents of that secret stash would have moved with them. It became a hidden trove of assets, a secret source of funds that only Kody and perhaps his most trusted confidant knew about. Does this explain some of the mysteries of the family's finances? How could they afford lavish trips and huge homes even when they were supposedly broke? Was there a secret rainy day fund that the other wives had no idea even existed? This connects directly to Meri's situation in recent years. For a long time, viewers have wondered why Meri stayed, even when she was so clearly miserable and ostracized. Was she, as the original wife and Kody's partner in the 2005 bankruptcy, the only other person who knew the full extent of their financial secrets? Was she bound by a shared secret, a fear of what might be exposed if she truly broke away? It's a terrifying thought. The secret storage unit wasn't just hiding assets. It was hiding the truth, a truth that could have been used as leverage for decades. The financial mechanics of Kody Brown's decades-long deception are shocking. The undervalued assets, the hidden creditors, the manipulative LLCs, the predatory land deals. But the true tragedy of the story isn't about the money. It's about how money was used as a tool of emotional and psychological warfare. This wasn't just financial mismanagement, it was financial abuse. Financial abuse is a form of coercive control. It's about using money to dominate, isolate, and trap a partner. And when we re-examine the history of the Brown family through this lens, Kody's behavior is textbook. He created a system of complete financial dependence. The wives were encouraged, especially in the early years, to pool all their resources into a central family pot, a pot that he alone controlled. They had no financial autonomy. They couldn't make their own financial decisions without his approval, which was rarely given. This left them vulnerable and powerless. He used financial gaslighting. He would constantly tell them the family was broke, that they were on the verge of ruin, even as he was spending lavishly on things that mattered to him. A new sports car, a huge house for his favored wife. When Janelle or Christine would raise valid financial concerns, he would dismiss them as being negative, ungrateful, or not committed to the family. He made them believe that they were the problem, not his mismanagement and secrecy. He used money to punish and reward. When a wife was in his favor, like Robyn, the money flowed freely. A beautiful home, nice things, financial security. When a wife fell out of favor, the purse strings were tightened. Look at Janelle, the financial workhorse of the family for decades, forced to live in an RV on a barren plot of land because Kody wouldn't release the funds for her to build. It was a clear and public punishment, a way of humiliating her and demonstrating his power. Look at Meri, left to rattle around in a massive house she couldn't afford on her own, financially tethered to a man who wouldn't even speak to her. It was a golden cage, designed to keep her trapped and isolated, and for Christine, her escape was a financial declaration of war. Her fight to get the money from her house wasn't just about the cash, it was about reclaiming her independence, her self-worth, and her power. Kody's resistance to giving her that money was his last desperate attempt to control her. By selling her home and taking her money to Utah, she wasn't just leaving a marriage, she was liberating herself from a financial dictator. The win for Christine and Janelle isn't just that they got out. It's that they exposed the system. They showed the world that the happy, unified, plural family was a sham, built on a foundation of financial control and emotional manipulation. And by leaving, they didn't just save themselves. They provided a roadmap for anyone in any kind of relationship who is being controlled by the weaponization of money. They proved that financial freedom is the first and most important step to personal freedom. The 2005 bankruptcy was more than a legal filing. It was a character statement. It revealed a man willing to lie and deceive for financial gain, and for the next 2 decades, he refined that skill, turning it inward and using it against the very women he had sworn to love, honor, and protect. The emotional wreckage he left behind is the tragic and predictable result of a man who learned long ago that in his world, the bottom line was the only thing that ever truly mattered. We have come to the end of our journey, a journey that took us from the present-day cul-de-sac of broken dreams in Flagstaff, back through a maze of corporate entities and predatory land deals, and finally to this single damning document from 2005, a forgotten filing. For nearly 20 years, it sat in a court archive, a relic of a past the Brown family, and especially Kody Brown, would have preferred to keep buried. But it is not just a document, it is a confession, it is a character statement, and it is without a doubt the key to understanding the entire tragic saga of the Brown family. This brings us to our final chapter, the reckoning. For years, the narrative, carefully curated by Kody and his sole remaining wife Robyn, has been one of betrayal. They paint a picture of a man who was abandoned, a patriarch whose dream was shattered by the selfishness of his wives. They claim the financial struggles, the anger, the bitterness. It's all a recent phenomenon, a direct result of Christine and Janelle choosing to leave. But this forgotten filing renders that entire narrative obsolete. It is the incontrovertible proof that Kody's financial dishonesty and manipulative tactics are not a new development. They are his modus operandi. This is not a man who changed. This is a man who was finally revealed. The 2005 bankruptcy filing shows us a Kody Brown who, from the very beginning of his plural family journey, was willing to deceive the highest authorities in the land for his own financial benefit. This wasn't a simple mistake. This was a calculated performance for a federal court. The man who swore under penalty of perjury that he had only $10 in cash and $5 in the bank was the same man responsible for the welfare of 3 women and 12 children. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. It demonstrates a fundamental disconnect from truth and responsibility, a character trait that would come to define him. This filing proves that long before Robyn's arrival, Kody was already an expert in the art of financial obfuscation. He knew how to hide assets. He knew how to undervalue what he had. He knew how to manipulate the system to shed his responsibilities. And most cruelly, he knew how to betray the trust of those closest to him, as evidenced by the glaring omission of personal loans from his own family members on his creditor list. Robyn did not create this monster. At worst, she recognized a kindred spirit and enabled his darkest tendencies. She became the perfect partner for a man who had already mastered the game of financial manipulation. He had the blueprint. She simply helped him build a bigger, more elaborate labyrinth of deceit. The DABSARK LLC wasn't her invention. It was the corporate evolution of the same mindset that hid assets in 2005. The Coyote Pass land scheme wasn't her master plan. It was the large-scale application of the same predatory instinct that allowed Kody to walk away from $250,000 in debt, scot-free. This investigation is therefore the ultimate vindication for Christine and Janelle. Think of the years of gaslighting they must have endured, the years they were told they were crazy for worrying about money, the years they were told they were being selfish for wanting a home, for wanting financial transparency, for wanting their fair share. They were living with a man who was playing by a secret set of rules, a man who viewed the family finances not as a shared resource, but as his personal kingdom, where he was the sole arbiter of who was worthy and who was not. Their struggles in Flagstaff were not new problems. They were the final, unbearable symptoms of a sickness that had been festering in the family's foundation since the very beginning. The bankruptcy filing is the proof. It validates every single one of their tears, every sleepless night spent worrying about their future, every gut-wrenching argument where they felt unheard and unseen. It proves they weren't leaving a man who was struggling. They were escaping a financial predator who had been preying on their labor and their loyalty for decades. Their decision to leave was not an act of betrayal. It was an act of profound courage. It was the decision to stop playing a rigged game. They walked away from the promises of a shared future because they finally and irrevocably understood that with Kody, the future was never meant to be shared. It was meant to be conquered. And what of Kody now? We see a man adrift, lamenting his lost kingdom and his empty coffers. He cries about the loyalty he is owed, the respect he no longer commands. But what this investigation reveals is the devastating irony of his situation. The very traits that he honed in that 2005 bankruptcy, the secrecy, the control, the willingness to put his own financial interests above all else, are the very things that cost him everything. He was so focused on winning the financial game that he failed to realize he was losing his family. He consolidated his assets but bankrupted his relationships. The man who once stood before a court and declared he had nothing has in the end made that declaration come true in the only way that truly matters. He is a king with no subjects, a patriarch with no family, a husband with no partners left to control. The bankruptcy he filed in 2005 was for his finances. The bankruptcy he faces today is of the soul. So, there you have it. The forgotten filing that changes everything. It's the origin story, the smoking gun, and the final word on Kody Brown's character. The pattern is undeniable, and the evidence is written in the black and white of a public court record. But now, I want to hear from you. Having seen the evidence, do you believe this was Kody's plan all along? How much do you think Robyn knew, and how much did she actively participate in? And most importantly, do you see this as the ultimate validation for Christine and Janelle? Drop your explosive theories and your messages of support in the comments below. I read every single one. This is the kind of deep dive we do here at COCO Gossip. We don't just skim the surface of the drama, we dig deep to unearth the truth that's been buried for years. If you believe in what we do and you want more investigations that hold these reality stars accountable, please show your support. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you are the first to know when we drop our next bombshell report. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. We're already working on our next investigation where we follow the money trail of Meri's business empire and ask the question, was her LuLaRoe success the real reason she was finally able to break free? Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey into the past. Remember, the truth is always there. You just have to be willing to look for it. Until next time, stay gossipy and keep your eyes wide open.